investors is Christoph from Point Nine Ventures. Christoph actually specifically focuses on investing on this thesis, the SaaS-enabled marketplace. And that I see continuously being a big opportunity in 2021. So that's number one. Number two, services plus SaaS. What does this mean? This means having software that's, a point of a system of record or a workflow, et cetera. But more importantly, you bundle in your services, your professional services to the offering that you have. Why is this powerful? Okay, some people be like, if it's not pure software, then it's pure business. Well, when you have these companies that, like one of my coaches, ClickFunnels, they do 160 million a year. These are all public numbers they've shared themselves. And the way they've designed it is they look at SaaS as success as a service. How do I make sure my customer solves the problem? Our tool is one component. Understanding how to deploy the tool, helping them configure it, giving them the education around that tool is a big, big opportunity. So that's number two. Layla from Allen, allen.com, ALAN.com. One of my coaching clients went from 0 MRR to 1.4 million a month in MRR in about 9 months. The way she did it is not only a partner strategy, which I teach, which is very powerful, but the second thing is by kind of looking at her market and saying, if we want, she works with gym owners. We want to help gym owners increase the sales volume, sales calls that they produce. And that's what Allen does. It's essentially an automated sales chat system. Then we probably need to help our partners that sell the software teach their customers how to be more successful in business. The more successful in business, the more they'll use our product, the more revenue we make, because their revenue is based off of a pricing axis. Their value metric is based on their booking. So the more they grow, the more money they make. And so they've really bundled in not only subscription to the software, but also the services and the training to make sure that the customers are successful. Again, that whole methodology of SaaS equals success as a service. And then the one that I actually got from Nathan Laka is Centro. Centro is 142 million a year marketing technology company. They have that people pay subscription for, but their revenues at 142 million is 50-50, 50% monthly reoccurring for the technology and 50% for the services and the done for you components. And it just allows a lot more founders to bootstrap their way into 8 figures. And I think it's a beautiful model. And for the ones that don't want to raise a ton of venture capital, it helps you increase your average order value, increases your ability to retain customers because they're more successful with your product. It's something I think we're going to continue to see as a big trend. Number 3, I've got 4. Number 3, IoT plus SaaS. This is one of my favorites. One of the trends in the world is kind of miniaturization and really just having more physical devices around us, right? So a lot of us have like Alexa at home or Google Home or Apple's got their HomePod. But this idea of figuring out this electronic component that you could insert into the customer success stack, right? Like whatever your customer does, if you could add a monitoring component and then that hardware as either on a monthly fee or a leasing program, or they could pay a one-time charge, but really offer what that component does as a monitoring tool as the subscription. So you kind of build in lock-in. I'll give you a few examples. Peter and Ben, both clients I coach. Peter's in the UK, he's got Fleet Check. Ben is in GPS, he's in Canada. They both have fleet management SaaS companies, and they sell their hardware that goes into the vehicles, and that hardware feeds all the data over the wire to their SaaS product, right? It's a pretty straightforward one. Another one of my clients, Mark at DPL. DPL has a hardware SaaS solution for ATM machines, so automatic teller machines, where maybe those devices you go and get money out of, that they sell to not only provide monitoring of cash levels in the ATM machine, but also security and theft prevention and tracking and any kind of analytics and data. And customers pay for the hardware and they pay for the subscription. The reason why this is so powerful, if you have kind of a solution set that would be open to IoT is to build a device in today's world. Literally, you can just hire a company, tell them what the specs are. They grab all these open source components, build the configuration. It might cost you 25 grand to build the initial version, but then you can sell these ongoing. So for example, Sensa Networks, they have a waste management IoT product where they monitor levels of waste. It's about $900 to build their hardware. And 60% of the customers buy it straight out for $2,400 as a one time. And then 40% decide to rent it. But, then they charge $34 per location for the reporting and the analytics to monitor, right? So big trend, I think, as the cost of hardware and building hardware comes down, as the amount of 5G and IoT kind of expands, I think we're going to see a whole lot more of this. I mean, if you think about it, Apple phones starting to do the same thing. So those are called rundles, where they bundle a bunch of services and reoccurring subscription bundles. But I mean, all of a sudden now Apple is like, hey, you don't have to buy the phone. You can just get the phone and pay us a subscription. So I think we're going to see more and more and more of this kind of hardware subscription and software solution in the market. Number 4 is the one that's near and dear to my heart, is a percent of GMV, gross merchandise value. So, and subscription. So what this means is, I'll give you a really quick example. One of my clients, Jonathan at Service Autopilot. So Autopilot essentially is a SaaS product for local service companies that are selling anybody that's got a truck that goes to somebody's house. That was their customer. So home care, lawn care, pool maintenance, etc. If you have to manage a fleet of trucks that go to somebody's house and you want to manage invoicing and routing and all that stuff, that's what Service Autopilot did. Now, Service Autopilot gets paid on a subscription basis, and it's all on their website. But the other part of their business model was ensuring that the transactions went through their payment gateway. Why is that interesting? Because all of a sudden now, that transactional volume, the percent of gross merchandise, those invoices that are getting paid through their platform, has value in the market. And value in the market. Credit card companies look at that reoccurring transaction because they know the percentages and what's that worth to these big payment gateways. All of a sudden now you have the SaaS revenue that really develops the business, and then you grow this percent of GMV that allows you to get this amplifier to a valuation, right? Russell at ClickFunnels, one of my other coaching clients, ClickFunnels this brilliantly, where a lot of the things that people are selling are using their payment gateway. Now they've partnered with Stripe to do, but they get a piece of the transaction revenue from Stripe as a partner. One of my other clients, Kyle at Proposify. Proposify is one of the world's top proposal tools in the world, so proposal software. And a lot of people, because it's inherent, it's like I send you a proposal and you pay it. They are now building in that infrastructure so that all the payments and the transactions go through their gateway, so they can get a percent of that gross merchandise value, plus still continue to get the subscription revenue. So those are the 4 big trends in the market. I'm just curious, which one are you most excited about? Enabled marketplace? Leave your answer below in the chat. Is it 2 services plus SaaS, or 4 of GMV plus SaaS? If you're interested, you have any questions, coaching, etc., looking to get to the next level, you can go to Dan Martell, 2lsmartell.com/call and book in a call with one of my scale specialists to see if I can help. That being said, I want to turn this over to you and see if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Services plus SaaS marketplaces, Alex. Awesome. So Liam, I don't know if you're going to drive the Q&A, but I would love to answer some questions. Alan, Darko, Zan, Ava, Igor, Jaka, Jost, Yost, Giovanna, Kinga, Cresso, Maja, Martin, Otto, Simon. How you guys all do? Oh, all good, Liam. I figured as much. You know, Alex knows that I can fill space and air. I love getting to know everybody. So I'm just going through the chat here. SaaS enabled marketplace is Matik. I love that. And I'm really excited to be fantastic. Thanks for asking. Yeah, no, I just about healthcare with SaaS solutions. There's a few trends in healthcare. One of the biggest ones I know in the US, Darko, I can't speak to, you know, depending on the part of the world you're in. Clients, Royal J, they have a SaaS platform for doctors and really medical systems in Canada, where I spend most of my time. I also spend half my time in the US in San Diego. So I split, but in Canada, we have medical coverage part of the government, but in the US, they're going to this new kind of like process to incentivize doctors to reduce the amount of incidents. There's a name for it. I think it's called value-based insurance or something like that. But essentially, the trend is that there's software companies like one of my clients at Royal J, where they, Jared, he sells the SaaS solution to medical systems like these bigger networks of hospitals. And then what it does is it analyzes all of the doctors and their patients and the issues. There's Liam, nice to see you. And then based on the data, it uses an incentivization strategy to find out which doctors are actually better at preventative, least amount of infections, the least amount of repeat visits, the least amount of future issues. And they have enough data, and it's all SaaS based, to be able to actually compensate the doctors for being a better doctor, which I think is an incredible trend, right? Like when all of a sudden, if I know, hey, getting somebody to exercise is probably a really good strategy versus giving them a pill, and now I'm going to get rewarded for that because there's visibility into the long-term aspect, and it's not how fast I can get through a bunch of patients. That's a trend that I think I'm excited to see.
Oh man, I made it. I'm so sorry that took me forever.
I was in the same spot earlier, so I
know. Now I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I just punched my MacBook and it fixed everything. So that was a good solution, like a Super Nintendo. I wanted to ask you about services plus SaaS, because I've been a huge fan of this ever since I worked for a SaaS company that basically was a professional services company masking as a SaaS product, and I was blown away by how much easier it is to sell professional services when you have a product than when you don't. And so my big question after having worked for one of those companies was, how do you know when professional services is a good go-to-market strategy for a SaaS product? Like, what is it, a certain type of SaaS product that it works? Is it a certain type of ICP?
Yeah, it's usually anything that's high configuration, right? So that means, you know, there's migration involved, there's a setup involved. So like, that's why I think the marketing stack really makes a lot of sense. So you think in kind of sales or MarTech, but it's still sold as the software and then the services. So for example, one of my clients, Corey at Webware, they sell essentially e-commerce platform businesses, but for $350 a month, you don't need to hire anybody else to all the stuff. So the website, the e-commerce, the product SKUs, the booking engine, all the features are there. But if you need your logo change or copy change, or you need somebody to write blog post articles, like anything that you need Facebook ads, it's all part of that 350. So what they've done is they've got this core SaaS. It's got this, you know, like the traditional SaaS has about 89, 87% margin. Then they've got this service layer because of economies of scale and knowing the customer segments they serve, they can create repeatability in that model. Is kind of like an part. And they just have enough data to know that no one person is going to take advantage. So they kind of say like, hey, per quarter, we can execute one of these services. So it might be the website this quarter, Facebook ads the next quarter, blogs the third quarter, et cetera. And it's just really, it just makes it a compelling offer. Because if you think about, like, that's why I call it success as a service. If I'm a small businesses, I don't want to spend my time trying to figure out what platform I need because I don't know even how to configure it. But if you say, look, not only will you have the problem solved, which is website, e-commerce, booking engine, etc., invoicing, we'll make sure that we configure it so you don't have to like hire another person. I mean, I pay, embarrassed to say, but I use a product called Infusionsoft. I call it Confusionsoft. And I have a full-time dedicated person that I pay, 70 grand a year to manage this software, which is crazy, right? In this world of, hey, it should just be intuitive enough for people to use it. But the reality of it is, if somebody came along and said, for half the cost of the monthly subscription I pay Confusionsoft and the individual, they'll take care of the campaign build outs and stuff and give me all the same features, it's just a compelling offer.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that I've been really impressed with seeing is like professional services as like bootstrapping R&D, where basically like you need to build out your product, but you can't sell it as a product just yet to say IBM or an enterprise. Throw people man hours at it and then test it.
It's customer financing too.
Yeah, exactly.
The customer will pay you to build. The only risk, and this is where it's super important, if you do that, you need to make sure you're selling the same package every time and not selling a really expensive feature build that nobody else wants, right? And that's what typically happens if you don't have a lot of experience is you need to sell a solution and here's how it works. And if you want it, great. If you don't, that's fine. Versus 10 customers with 10 different features that neither of them want. So there's no repeatability into the stack.
True. You got a good question from Eva in the chat, which is good courses and books on growth mindset that you might want to recommend.
I could speak about this for days. Here's the deal. Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck is the Bible. She coined it. She's the expert, etc. If you said, well, let's scratch the surface a little deeper than that. I really think growth mindset and really developing that belief system comes down to identity. So the best book on identity is a book called Alter Ego by one of my best friends, Todd Herman. Okay, so the Alter Ego Effect, New York Times bestseller, Todd Herman. That's two. If you want to, because mindset's an interesting one, but if you want to talk about mental toughness, grit, confidence, and really developing that aspect of your mindset, I'm going to go with this program called 75 Hard. Okay, 75 Hard is something I'm doing right now. It was created by a guy named Andy Frisella. There's a book called 75 Hard, and the structure is it's the Iron Man for the mind. Okay. And it comes down to 75 days. Here's the format. Okay, I've got the app on my phone. So you can download the app. But the format is 2 workouts a day. One of them has to be outside. No excuses. 2 45 minutes a day. Meal plan. So some kind of diet that you respect. Keto, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but essentially you got to follow a diet. You have to take a progress pic every day. You have to drink 4 liters of water. Or a gallon of water, 3.7 liters of water. That's the hardest part. I literally chug these a day. And no cheat meals, no alcohol for 75 days. No days off. Okay, I'm on day 45. And it's interesting, just like building habits, building structure, honoring your commitment. And 0.1% of the people actually finish. It's not to boast. I will 100% finish because that's just the kind of guy I am. But if you toughness side of the mindset, I can't recommend that 75 Hard, anymore. It's literally something I'll be doing every year for the rest of my life because it's just so valuable as kind of like a cleanse. It's almost like a cleanse for the mind and an Iron Man at the same time.
You've got me looking at the book on Audible and wondering whether I'm about to go into
It's one of those questions, man. Do I want to go down that? But it's like if somebody wants a jolt, I kind of think of it, it's like if you're just like, fuck it, I want to see what the next level of what's possible for me. Like I'm already a high performer, but I'm like, what's the next gear? And that's what I do for my clients. It's what is the next gear? What is the next level? And it doesn't matter of like if it's physical transformation or mental transformation, the mind is the one most fascinating ones.
We got time for one last question, and Odo had one in the comments, which is a really good one. We hear a lot about data as the new oil, implying that data or the insight that can be extracted from it is incredibly valuable. But here's a big challenge. How do you get sample data? So, you know, everyone wants to build the next Palantir, but what do you do if you don't have the raw data? And I was wondering if you or any of your clients had experience on that.
Yeah, I mean, the cool part is at scale, you start to produce that. So the IoT one is an example. But if you don't have it getting access to it, it's probably going to be difficult because, as you know, I mentioned, it is oil. And if I've got it, I know how valuable it is. One of my friends, I forget the name of it, but he's building a marketplace for data to solve that specific problem. And what's cool is that kind of like back in the day, there was like this business card network where you could put business cards in, a contact you had, and they would give you credits so that you could go get business contact info. It's kind of the same idea. I've got valuable data. I contribute to the marketplace. I can monetize it, anonymize, and then I can also get credits to leverage. So I have a friend that does that. And then one of my clients, they do alternative data sets for investing. This is the most fascinating one for me. You know, all these investors, these hedge funds, the amount of data out there, for example, satellite imagery looking at parking lot utilization to help investors make decisions on retailers. I mean, or looking at oil reserve levels and like looking at containers on how empty these oil reserves are for people to make bets, directionally speaking, on price of oil. I mean, that's the level of data that exists that all the hedge funds know about through these alternative data set marketplace companies. So yeah, if you don't have the data, I don't know how to tell you to convince somebody to give it to you. But if you are building something that can at least collect it, save it, because somebody will find it valuable down the road.
Dan, well, I see we're coming up on time. Odo, your answer. I feel like that's the bar. So
appreciate it.
Personally, I want to say for someone for whom it's 8 o'clock at night, and I know it's what, noon for you, 1 maybe?
I'm actually 4 p.m. I'm Atlantic Standard.
Oh, you're Atlantic. Still, thank you for bringing the energy. Like, definitely needed it.
That's how I show up any minute of every day. So I appreciate the recognition, Liam. You've got a killer lineup today. I'm really excited for everybody. Appreciate again the opportunity. And if I can help anybody, you guys know where to find me online.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Dan.
Have a great day.
Thanks for that keynote.
Cheers.
Okay, so thank you. And moving forward to the first panel, I will invite Liam to stay with us, and also Alan and Dushan to join the panel. Give me a second to make you a host as well. Okay, I can see Alan. Alan, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Okay, Dushan. So, quick introduction. I already made an intro about Liam. Alan is a VP of marketing at Pleo, one of the first employees. He built a marketing and sales team. And Dushan is a CEO at Clean Shelf. So, yeah, Liam, please, the stage is yours. I'm leaving again.
Oh man, I thought I came well prepared with my nice webcam setup. Dushan is rocking the Cisco conference room. How are you guys doing today? Let's get a quick mic and video check.
All good here. All good here. I feel like Dushan has some video problems though.
Oh, I've been there. That's the autofocus on the camera. Dushan, why don't we give you a minute? I don't know if that's something you can fix on your side.
Yep, will be fixed in a second.
No problem. No problem. Well, guys, I'll take 2 seconds just to introduce myself. In addition to being Maddox's assistant, I would say is a good description on this event. I'm also a marketing director at a company called 360 Learning, hyper-growth SaaS company, providing a learning platform for teams to create and share knowledge in the form of courses. We do everything from certifying contractors before they go on nuclear power plants. We also help sales team onboard new sales team members by sharing the best pitches and managing feedback and helping get information shared by your peers as quickly as possible. More relevant to today, I've spent the last 4 years working at hypergrowth SaaS companies. In the pre-COVID times, I would go to SaaStock every single year. It was great because my family's Irish, and I always needed a good excuse to go back to Dublin, and my family would make me come see them. But I've actually been for the last 10 years working in the SaaS ecosystem, formerly a journalist, and that's probably the hat I'll be putting on today, because this is about the last you're going to hear from me today. I see that Dushan's got his webcam working. Alan's ready to go. So guys, if you guys are ready, why don't we kick this off?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Can you hear me fine?
I hear you perfectly, yeah.
Excellent.
The only thing I have, and I just want to make sure that the audience is okay, I have a bit of an echo, but I don't know if it's because I'm the host. Alan, do you hear a bit of an echo when I talk?
Yep. No, only with Dushan talks, but I guess it's probably the room.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's because of the room. So
yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. In that case, no worries. Well, guys, what I want to talk about today is kind of building on where Dan was going. Dan took us down 4 very distinct roads for the future. Actually, yeah, I'll take Gabriel's comment. If you guys can, if it's not too hard, mute your microphones when you're not talking. I'll do the same on my end. It'll just make things a little easier. What I want to talk about a little bit is how the year started. I'd like to start at the beginning of 2020. I don't know if you remember, I went to a concert in the beginning of 2020, and then I traveled on a plane to a different continent. I was supposed to go to a SaaS conference in March, and I don't know if anyone else was on their way to San Francisco in the middle of March, but I definitely was. But more importantly, we started 2020 with plans about how we expected the year to go. And so I kind of want to hear from both of you guys on, given how things had been going coming into 2020, what were you expecting from this year? So can you tell us a little bit about how the past few years at your respective companies had been going briefly, and tell us a little bit about coming into 2020. What were the challenges you guys were facing, and what were you getting ready for? Dushan, why don't you kick it off?
Thank you. So yeah, my year started with a term sheet on a table and pushing for the second. So January was about kind of deciding which term sheet to accept. And then, February was, a lot of work with lawyers, and then March started. So we all observed the world crashing, and on my end, it was finalizing our investment, which was finalized on March 12th, which was a very interesting week, to say the least. And of course, ever since, it was a really wild ride. So not only is the world changing, but at CleanChef we were able to more than double the team over the past 6 months. It was an amazing ride so far. This year is really a long year, so many things packed in. That's how my year so far was.
And Alan, why don't you tell us a little bit, paint us a picture.
So I think we came off the back of a really strong year in 2019, really good growth year for Pleo. Just opened a few new countries, a few new markets. We raised our Series B. We were in just hyper growth plan. We were scaling our budget significantly. We're scaling our team, our sales operations, our sales organization, our marketing organization. And I think everything was just going like, I think Trump said is like the economy has never been better, right, in the beginning of the year. So I think everybody was having huge expectations, right? And I was similarly in the US at the time, and then I kind of fled to Europe, and then I've seen kind of like this dramatic day when everything stopped, and there was like this shock element of what's going to happen, what's next. And I think up until then, I think we had like huge growth plans. I think, and then we had to adapt, right? We had to like learn what the situation is going to bring us. We had to think about our growth projections. We had to think about our employee projections. So I think a lot of things that happened during this period, I think during the whole lockdown, I think made us a lot more resilient in a way. I think we kind of really focused on what's important, really important, focused on the value proposition, really focused on our existing customers, on providing value in like tough times. So I would say it's been an interesting period where I feel like there was like just the spikes of optimism, and then I would say fear, and then kind of optimism again as we're kind of going now into the second lockdown, where we expect at least what's going to happen a bit more.
And you started to paint a good picture. I mean, if we look back between, let's say, March to September, or just before today, right? Like remote, definitely, budgets very much shifting, if not disappearing. How have you guys navigated 2020, especially the like Q2, Q3, like March to September? For me at least, was a whole bunch of different decisions than I expected. And where would you say it hurt the most? Like, what was the toughest? And where have you been pleasantly surprised in the past 6 months?
Yeah, for us, it was first kind of establishing the situation. So should we panic? Should we do any drastic changes? Is there opportunity that exists? And at the end, what we found is that we have money on our bank account. We need to hire the best people. Everybody else is letting people go. Let's focus on hiring. And we got talent which otherwise would never be available to us. And I think that's the biggest win for Clean Shelf so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Alan, go ahead.
I think it's kind of a similar, kind of going back to the roots, I'd say, kind of filing the value propositions, which will work both in, high growth economy and then also in recession. I think the thing is with Pleo, it's like it's one of those products where it's a necessity, right? Like people need to spend money somehow. The companies that exist, right, they need to spend money. Like how will they spend it has changed. So we kind of had to adapt basically our value propositions a bit. We had to adapt to of course, the working culture changing a bit more towards like categories, towards companies that were in high growth, that is e-commerce, that is delivery systems, that is marketplaces. We're trying to cater for the existing clients that were also kind of experiencing tough times, and then also kind of give an opportunity to new customers to use this time to basically digitalize their financial processes. So we came with a lot of examples where we tried to kind of focus a lot more on those value propositions, but we also kind of gave offers to customers that were struggling, trying to keep them afloat, trying to be supportive in these tough times. I think looking at it back now, I think the fear was there because of the uncertainty, but I said, I think we became a lot more resilient. We scaled quite a lot during the summer, and I think we had our best months now in the past few months, actually. And I think it was a lot of the results focusing on the really core value propositions, which will not change, right? Whether that is high growth or recession.
Yeah, I mean, those are two really good points. I mean, talent was definitely, it's a terrible thing to say, but there was more talent available because not every company was in a position where they just closed money, or they were financially stable, or they were selling a product that wasn't immediately impacted. I've been pleasantly surprised in that respect as well. I guess the question now is, we're far enough in that I think the initial reaction has started to wear off, right? It's no longer, remote isn't new, pandemic isn't new, impacted industries isn't new. There's a certain amount of what will be the effect of this lasting 6, 12, 18 years more, kidding, months more. But I guess the question is the future radically different? Is the future, is adoption accelerated? Are there new challenges that we're gonna pop up? Are there industries that are still pretty precarious and might not last another 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? What do you guys see now that you have this sort of 6 months of data?
Alan, will you go first?
Actually, we did a lot of research on looking into this data, right? Like understanding like the business spending behavior that is happening through the companies, right? So we've seen like declines on entertainment and travel, which was our #1 industry where people would do company expenses, decline dramatically. And then we would see an increase in SaaS services, which actually probably worked really well for Dusan and his team, right? So a lot of like digitalization, just expanding maybe into sectors that were not really used to using those services before, right? And I think that's also like the cloud index is just following that trend, right? Like this digitalization just needed to be accelerated, right? Like people just needed to buy software really fast overnight to kind of keep them afloat. It's like one of the most popular merchants during this whole time has been LastPass and services that keep people connected, of course, like Zoom and stuff, but also services that keep people privacy safe, right? As people are working remote. And I think that's a lot of legacy companies that have experienced that, right? Like they were maybe not used to working with the cloud services as we were. That's also with the public sector that I've seen. So I think we've seen probably quite a lot of demand also from companies that were a bit more traditional and then kind of trying to shift. There's also been interesting stuff looking into what kind of services people buy during this time, even for their employees. How do perks change? How do people keep people engaged during this lockdown? So there's also interesting data on that. So kind of like, what can you expense when you're actually working from home? So kind of like entertainment for people that are actually working from home and stuff like that, right? So I would say that digitalization just happened overnight, a lot faster than we anticipated, and I think like the stocks rising for all the cloud companies is just like a result of that, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really great point. Like markets that were otherwise untouchable or high barrier to entry, like public sector or enterprise or public education, basically had to throw out the book on how they purchase software, which opens up great new opportunities for SaaS companies. Dushan, you want to build on that?
Yes, certainly. So for us, security further increased in importance. So with people being at home, the security implications, visibility implications have become much more important than before. And this is the area that we see the most kind of increased interest in our offering. So that's probably the biggest change. So in April, so March and April, CIOs were focused on enabling work from home, and starting in May, they start to think, okay, we created all this mess. How do we address all the challenges? How to manage all the things that are out there? So this is what we see changing in behavior of CIOs.
Yeah, it's funny because historically security, depending on what your target ICP was, really wasn't that big of an issue. You know, a mid-market company might be accessing your product from one IP at all, the office, and that's pretty much, that's it. That's their security. You know, maybe they're doing IP whitelisting, and that's already a level of complexity. Now, every company's accessing a product from multiple markets. Everyone's accessing it from changing IPs. Maybe they're tethering from their phone because they're off in a countryside, staying at their parents' place, and it doesn't seem like it can be an afterthought. Security. I mean, I've worked for 40 to 200 person companies that don't really SaaS companies that don't necessarily have security being at the forefront. I've also worked for companies for whom security was a bigger concern than it was for the customers, because that was the culture of the company. But it seems like now there might be a bit of a moat around. I don't necessarily want to switch because this product knows how to work for our scenario, right? We don't have to compromise security. That's really interesting. Well, I feel like as we look forward into 2021, I wonder how much of 2021 is going to look like 2020. Do we expect that digital adoption, that rollout's going to keep going? Do we expect that the talent availability is going to keep going? How much are you guys, I mean, it's Q4. I mean, assuming you guys run on the standard year, you guys are probably ramping up to think about 2021. So what are you guys expecting for your companies? What are you projecting, and what are you telling your board that they can expect going into 2021?
So we continue to expect that people will find it harder to part ways with their money. So that means a bit longer sales cycles, more scrutiny, more competitive research. So definitely people are still very nervous about market conditions. The focus will continue to be on digital transformation and kind of enabling flexibility in the business. So this is what we kind of anticipate for the next year.
Definitely, stinginess is gonna make things tough. Alan, how about you?
I'd say something similar, right? Like that I said before. I think companies are going to continue to exist and going to continue to spend money, and how they do it is going to change probably a bit, right? Like they're probably going to be a bit more strategic of what they're going to purchase. They're going to probably be a bit more, depending of course on the industry, right? They're going to think about, is this a nice to have thing, or is this a necessity? Like for us as a business, I think at the end of the day, we want to support companies to make the best decisions for their company. So we have to basically build features in mind to keep us more resilient during times that are not more maybe focused on. I think what we've learned during this time is like we've been quite focused on maybe like offline expenses because we were a card solution, and we also went a lot more into the cloud, as you can see, offering virtual services, offering our virtual cards, and offering perks to our company, to our customers by giving them discounts to different SaaS services, kind of nudging them into the direction of showing how we can accommodate different types of spending that what we were used to before. I think what happened is like we did a nice and healthy split also there, because we kind of got a lot more categories onto Pleo, onto the spending that we couldn't maybe didn't have before, because travel was just going really crazy, the B2B travel space, right? So I think we hope that everything will compound in 2021. I hope for that business travel will come back, just because it's also something that people miss, that I see that people also want to do, also internally in our company during the summer, right? Like people miss to see each other and face to face. But in terms of talent, I think it also kind of made us a company that is a lot more flexible. We've been kind of remote open, but I think now we're like remote, not really remote first. We still have 6 offices, but we're like very flexible now. And the talent that we're bringing in the past few months has been literally from all the corners of the world, right? So we're less concerned about like the location now. So I think that's a benefit for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, you really raise some good points. I mean, just what you were saying there at the end. If I had to think about 2 things that for me stand out as being really obvious coming into 2021, one thing that we think a lot about is it seems really obvious that your narrative, when you go and talk to your prospects, when you talk to your ecosystem, we know we're going to address the elephant in the room. It's impossible. What conversation in or outside of work does not mention pandemic, COVID-19? I mean, there's a bingo card and everyone's hitting it. I think the hard part then is that prior to COVID-19 and this situation, your strategic narrative could be vastly different from your competitors. It was really easy. And in fact, they could both exist in parallel, and that was okay. And so you could have a compelling story and have that elevated you beyond product features. And everyone has now switched over to, here's why our product is good post-COVID. And so I think the hard part that we're going to see is the commoditization of that narrative very quickly. It's not going to be sufficient. I can't imagine any ICP that's going to be satisfied with, oh, good, this company is aware of COVID-19, and they say, and they've shown me the features that prove it's feature proof. I think the bar is going to be a lot higher, and the companies that are going to stand out aren't going to be just, we've seen the Zoom and the Microsoft Teams, and this tool is good for work from home. But I think the companies that are going to bring a narrative of how you go forward and not just sort of how you live with what's going on, I think that for me is going to be critical, and I'm constantly looking at companies. For example, I just saw one today, and I'll find the name in a bit, that's focused on asynchronous meeting management, right? Plenty of tools that help you manage meetings, Calendly to book your meeting, Zoom to record your meeting, lots of people hitting meeting fatigue. And so companies coming in and say, we're not a note-taking app, we're an asynchronous meeting management tool, right? They're bringing that narrative to how do you get beyond the current situation. So for me, that one's huge. And similar to what you said, Alan, about being more remote friendly, I think redefining the office is going to be a huge hurdle in 2021, and it's not really clear how it's going to impact people. We're a corporate university tool, and suddenly we have the responsibility to introducing new employees to their colleagues, because the first thing you do when you join a company is onboarding, and so suddenly you're the first impression in it. And suddenly people are thinking, oh, well, we'll just set up a meeting. Oh no, we don't want to have them doing 9 hours of meetings, for the first 14 days, just sitting in front of a computer. And so suddenly you have to redefine company culture, redefine the office, redefine employee perks. How are we going to keep and retain these talents if we can't give them, lunch in the office, cafeteria, a great desk, great rooftop, whatever. Well, suddenly the office is this desk that I've set up, the choice of my chair, my access to technology. And I think those two trends, just recognizing how you're going to tell that story to employees, really, and how you're going to tell that story to your target market, I think are going to be huge battlegrounds in 2021. Well, gang, we've got 5 minutes left. I do want to open the chat up to some questions. Gang, I gave you 6 minutes notice to start thinking about questions. So I want to hear your fears. What are you afraid of? I want to hear your doubts. I want to hear your questions. So chat room, don't let me down. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on Alex and make him come back and entertain us for a little bit. But while we're waiting for them to warm up, because I know I got caught off guard by Dan's question prompt earlier, I'll ask you guys this one last question, which is, take yourself back a few years, starting a company. What would you say to someone coming in to 2020 and they've got the itch, they see that things are changing, and they say, hey, Amazon got started in a crash, Facebook got started, got big during the crash, like now might be the opportunity. What do you think in the rule, how have the rules changed, or how have they stayed the same? And what do you say to new SaaS founders, or to the next generation of SaaS founders? Oh, Dushan, you're on mute. Oh, you're on mute still. You're on mute on our end. I don't know how this works. I think you're on mute on the browser.
Maybe I can go in the meanwhile.
Okay, Alan, I'll have you go first while Dushan figures out the mute.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of like the most common narrative right now, right? With a lot of VCs and like this business profile saying like every crisis brings us a lot of new opportunities. I think it's the same, right? Like there's a lot of, as you said earlier about this example of, rebundling video services or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of new categories popping up. There's a lot of new use cases, solutions, where there's online education just coming up, new categories that we didn't even know that existed that are going to probably stay permanent, right? But I think at the end is going to probably be like, I think during recession we kind of come to the core, like what do people really want in the beginning, right? Like not a lot will change, right? I think we during the recession we very much quicker come to the core of like fixing problems and kind of the main things that people want, right? And I think that's probably a good time during COVID, right? To kind of think about those things where are like really needed, right? There's not going to be a lot of fluff during this time coming up, right? I've seen a lot of fluffy startups as well during this time as well, but I think there's going to be a lot more.
Oh, there's fluff. Oh, it's still there.
So I think that's going to be probably a lot more of like companies that are a lot more like have no bullshit filter. So I'm quite excited for that during this time.
Dushan, take it away.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, crystal clear.
Excellent. Yeah. So in what I see is that the world become much smaller place over the past 9 months, which is really great if you are outside of Silicon Valley, because now being in the Silicon Valley is actually not so much an advantage anymore. And this gives tremendous opportunity to founders throughout the world. So we recently got a customer from Chile that was only a couple of months ago a 200-person company, but it grew 7x over the past 4 months because they're in food delivery business. So there are some business which are absolutely exploding. It doesn't matter where they're started because everybody is in the same position. So the Zoom call looks exactly the same in Ljubljana, Copenhagen, or San Francisco. And starting the business now is on one end much harder because the competition is so much more. But on the other end, if you make it, you can make it extremely big.
Great point. Yeah, I think my big takeaway from Dan's 4 trends on SaaS, on the future of SaaS earlier, is that the moat is changing. The moat used to be a great product experience, or what I like to call math in the cloud, a nice little technical differentiator. It seems now that the moat is professional services on top of it, or transactional volume on top of it, or bundling IoT with a subscription like Mirror or whatever the Peloton bike is. And it seems like, especially now, as things are really tough, figuring out how you're going to build a moat that's more than product experience, that's more than something that's commoditizable, I think is going to be where we're going to see people stand out, is really ingenious approaches to solving problems that combine SaaS. So we've got one last question, and then Matic, I promise I will turn it over. Our question comes from Kinga. She asks, do you think that SaaS companies should still communicate with messages like in these unprecedented times and offer COVID-related deals, or rather let it go? I've been working with several SaaS companies and their approaches are really varied. Isn't the audience tired of it? I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm happy to weigh in on this. Alan, I also know you're a marketing guru, so you want to take do you want to take this away?
Yeah, I think this kind of, I think people reach a saturation point. I think in the beginning, a lot of those offers and stuff like that were kind of like pinpointed and highlighted, but I think it just became, as everything with sales and marketing, it just becomes like a law of shitty click-throughs, right? Like it just kind of falls in the sea of other emails. So I think it's even better to avoid this and just take this as a new normal and try to basically understand what can you offer in this new normal, right? Like not create this kind of like scenario of like, oh, it's actually a horrible time, this is how we can help you. I think people know that already. So I think you just have to cut to the chase, right?
That's great. Dushan, you want to add to that? How are you guys handling this?
At the end of the day, it's all about empathy. So if you feel with the person on the other side of the Zoom, the words will come in the right way.
Yeah. On our end at 360 Learning, we did put out a COVID offer pretty early. It was mostly because we had hospitals reaching out who had to train first responder staff, and it was all volunteer staff. And we really just wanted a way to say, like, if you need a platform, like, it's free as long as you need it. And we just wanted to make it really clear, like, we don't need to sign a contract. We'll literally just give you access to a customer service rep and then get you onboarded. And so we put something out, and I mean, for 3 to 6 months, it was really good because we had a lot of people coming in and asking questions, and we were able to help the Paris Hospital Network in France and start a lot of good conversations. We kind of reflect what's going on. We don't see people asking for this and sort of bringing it up with us, so we don't talk about it. One of the things that we do talk about is we don't really talk about the pandemic or the COVID times. What we like to talk about is the Great Reset. You know, in the 1920s, it was the Great Recession, and in the 2020s, it's the Great Reset. And we just like to set the stage and say, we don't need to say why the great, you know, in the 1920s, it was, you know, market crash, and we know what's going on here. But I think the key thing is just letting people know that you're aware that the stakes have changed, and that you are operating in that new paradigm, and that's the way, at least that's the way we've been approaching it. Well, guys, we're well over time, and I don't want to dig in and get us far behind. So Alan, Dusan, thank you guys for taking the time with us, especially with this time zone changes, and I know it's darker and later than we would like. And audience, thank you guys for sticking around and your great questions. Really appreciate that. And hello, Matic. Good to have you back with us.
Hello, guys. Hi, Alan. Thanks. Dusan, thanks you
guys.
for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Just give me a second. I have to take the host mode off. Okay. So the next speaker is Nathan Latka. He's a founder of FounderPath, and he will be talking about how to raise money these uncertain times. Nathan, the stage is yours.
All right, guys, I think we're in business now. Give me a big ol' heck yes if you guys can hear me and see me clearly in the comments. There we go. You know, I wanted to like make you guys freak out for about 6, just make you wonder what is going on. Is it gonna work? I see you guys. Gabriel, good to see you. Look, the whole SaaStock crew is live. We've got obviously local here in Slovenia, but we got the whole SaaStock crew here. Matic and team, thank you so much for putting this on. And guys, listen, I stalked you guys. I went in here into this live session, went to attendees and started clicking down your names to try and get a sense of what you guys are building, but it was a little bit difficult because not everyone has updated their profile. So this is the only time I think you'll have permission to spam like you've never spammed before. Put your website link in the chat real quick and just let me know if you're bootstrapped or if you've raised capital. If you've raised, type how much. Go ahead and do that right now in the chat. Again, you'll never again will you be able to spam the chat like this, but go ahead and put it in the chat. Kinga Edwards joining. Guys, let me know what you're building. Okay, Liam is building 360 Learning, Series B, 50 million raised. Very good. Who else? Who else? Don't be shy. Andres Solinik, I see you. Darko Domenkanda, I see you. Igor Kuna, Yaka Smid, Yost Mandek, I see all of you guys. Go ahead and let me know, what are you guys building? Okay, Martin's building prospectroll.com, bestemailaverifier.com, smarttable.com. Martin, you're building every SaaS company. How are you doing this? You must have a 1,000-person team. We've got Alan again building Pleo.io Series B, $78 million raised. Guys, I'm excited to be with you. What we're going to talk about today are new ways to raise capital, specifically fast. And the reason I feel so excited and I feel a little undercover here talking to you guys based there in Slovenia is a lot of you guys might feel that you had to come pre-COVID to San Francisco or New York to raise capital because you are getting nasty term sheets from European VCs, term sheets that, you know, wouldn't give you the valuation you wanted, or, you know, had weird clauses and liquidation preferences that you didn't want. I'm going to show you some new ways to raise capital without having to sell a big chunk of your company. All right, Martin's saying, I'm a product guy here, need help with sales. Doman is building Clean Shelf. Aljaz, did I say that right? Aljaz building flexkeeping.com, 2 million. Sport Sportify, am I saying that right, Darko? Landing page, starting raising money. Rock, Git for designers and closed beta. Very cool. Bitpanda, 52 million USD Series A. Great. So some folks raised a lot, some raised none. I wish more people that are bootstrap type bootstrap in the chat, because you should be proud of it. Owning 100% of your company as you grow it to 5, 10 million in sales and getting stupid rich off dividends and free cash flow is a beautiful place to be. Okay, it's a beautiful place to be. You should be very proud of that. Let me now share my screen with you guys and see if we can make this work. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I'm going to kill that. I'm going to share this, and this should be beautiful. You should see the slides now. Guys, just yes or no. Can you see the slides? It should say how to raise 1 million in 72 hours. Yes or no? Do we see that? Tell me in the chat. Yes or no? Do we see that? Very good. All right, guys, let's rock and roll. So this is where my story started. Now, I don't know what the temperature is right now in Slovenia. Obviously, I know it's late. But for me, this is where everything started. A newspaper stand. It was Blacksburg, Virginia. So on the mountains in the East Coast here in the United States, it was wintertime. And no joke, folks, I was sprinting. Ziga, I was sprinting like you've never seen someone sprint before. Okay, Maja, I beat you in a race. I challenge you to race. I beat you in a race. Okay, I was running so fast. And the question you're going and wondering is, Nathan, why were you running? This was why. This was why. I was 21 years old. I was studying architecture at Virginia Tech. And the local paper put me in what's called A1, the big, beautiful A1. Now, if you're in the sort of PR world, you know A1 is the paper, the newspaper, and A1 is the prime slot. The big title on the cover. I was running to the newspaper stand because this was on the cover. I'll let you guys read my screen. Darko, Doman, can you guys read this right here where my mouse is? For those of you that can't see it, I'll read it to you. It says, big deal in Blacksburg. There's a picture of me, my first SaaS company, Heyo. And the text was, billionaire Randall Kirk has invested some of his venture capital fund on the fast growing startup, specifically $2 million. Can you imagine getting a cover like this? I thought this is what it was all about. I was so naive. I didn't know anything. I was 21. The company was doing about $99,000 a month in revenue, United States dollars. We were great. I was living in the best property on campus. I was still a student. We had 10, 20 people on the team, but this was the start of the end. And I'll show you what I mean. Look at our board deck. Does anyone ever do this? They show you their board deck. This is literally a screenshot of our board deck from August of 2012. Now, can you guys see what happened here? Look closely at the blue column. Look closely there at the blue column. You guys see what happened? So leading up to April of 2012, which is right here, we hit about 99,000 in revenue. We then got the first tranche of the 2 million, so about 400,000. And then we slowly and painfully started to flatline. No growth, no growth. Now, strategically, I'll talk about why that happened in a second, but this was the beginning of the end. Look what it did to my cap table. Now, guys, maturity-wise, I want to know where you guys are at. Yes or no? Do you guys understand what a cap table is? Just type yes, exclamation point, capital letters in the chat. You guys know what cap table is? Okay, Maddox says yes. Ziga's saying yes. So guys, look, again, no one ever does this. No one ever puts their actual cap table up. Okay, now remember, we had just raised capital. We were doing about $1 million run rate. This was our cap table. Okay, this was our cap table. Now, here was the issue with raising that money. Hannah Alvarez, look at what it did. So here's what it looked like. We had an early angel that owned 3%, an early developer owned 0.7%, another angel at a 10th. One of my co-founders owned 5%. Here I am. Guys, just to make sure you can read this clearly, type this number where my mouse is, type the percent of the company that I owned in the chat. Can you type this in the chat, this number? Type that in the chat if you can see it. That's how much equity I owned after raising, okay, right here where it says me. That's how much equity I owned after raising. Yep, you guys got it. Matic, Darko, Doman, 38%, okay, 38.06% to be exact. Another co-founder, 8%. And then look at as we go down here, the Series A investors, the ones that put in $2 million, they bought about 20% of the company, okay, about 20% of the company. So we raised at an $8.5 million pre-money valuation, plus the $2 million we raised, means our post-money valuation was $10.5 million. 8.5 plus 2. They now own 20% of the company, okay? But they also made me hire a COO because they thought I was too young. They thought I was too young, which I hate. How old are you guys? Type your age in the, if you're comfortable doing it, type your age in the chat. How old are you guys? They said, Nathan, you're 21. You're too young. You're too young to be running $1 million SaaS company. You need an adult supervision. Eva Oven, maybe you've gotten this comment at 25, right? They said, you're too young. So I had to give another 9%. Okay, Jost Mandik, 22. I had to give another 9% to the adult supervision COO. So altogether, 9% plus 20%. That's 30% of the company, basically, that I sold raising that money. And here's where that was the beginning of the end. Look at all these publicly traded SaaS companies. This is the amount of equity that each of these founders owned by the time they IPO'd. Scott Dorsey at ExactTarget only owned 3%. Aaron Levy at Box, 5.7%. Joe Payne at Eloqua, 5.5%. These are the founders, folks. These aren't these are the founders. The guys and gals that put up their blood, sweat, and tears. They wrote the first line of code from their basement. They hustled and closed their first customer, probably door knocking back in these days, right? Okay. Henry Schuck at ZoomInfo just went public I'll call it a month and a half ago. This is how much he owned. This is how much he owned. And Eric Wan at Zoom did the best job, owned about 20.5% of his company when he IPO'd, all right? Now, here's where I get into a question I want to ask you guys. I now spend my time running a podcast called The Top Entrepreneurs, and that's how and why I've personally interviewed over 2,200 SaaS CEOs, ranging from Matt Mullenweg, who obviously created WordPress via Automatic. He also bought Tumblr from Yahoo. The Freshworks founder, Giresh, who is about to go, well, we'll see, but likely filing for an IPO soon. Sid at GitLab with over 120 million revenue. Manny came on, Looker and Frank Bean came on right before they sold to Google for over $2 billion. So I've had these guys on, and a theme that I've seen between them, from people that raise a bunch of capital versus the ones that don't, you never hear about the ones that don't raise capital. Why is that? Why is that? Well, VCs need the storyline of it's important to raise capital to permeate the press and be everywhere That's why, people didn't want VC capital, they'd be out of business. But some of the happiest founders I've met are bootstrapped, doing 5 million in revenue. They own 100% of their company. They profit 1.5 million annually. And at the end of each year, they do a profit share with all their employees. But they usually take home $800,000 or $900,000, maybe $1 million personally. It is much easier to build a $5 million revenue bootstrap SaaS company than it is to swing for the fences for a unicorn, go raise a bunch of money, and try and build a $1 billion unicorn that IPOs. Guys, give me a big ol' heck yes if you agree with me. Do you get the logic there? If you're going to go for unicorn status, it requires a decade of time, hundreds of millions of raised. And by the way, you have to basically IPO or exit. Otherwise, you basically as a founder get nothing because of how liquidation preferences work. It's way easier to build wealth as a founder, especially if you're in Slovenia. Even me, I'm based in LA right now, to build $5-10 million in run rate and get wealthy off the profits. So what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Let's dive into what this actually means. Going to this next slide. Guys, there are 6 ways today that you guys can raise capital without giving up crazy amounts of equity. Now, here's the first one. I'm going to start with one we all know. You can go raise equity. You can go raise equity. Hannah Alvarez, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Matic, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. Many of the founders you've had on today are in the chat. They've raised capital. Nothing wrong with raising equity. But what's the cost? What's the cost? You guys can see on the left side of my screen the axes here. Equity usually costs about 40% in terms of interest rate. Meaning for me, when I sold 30% of my company for $2 million, if I exited 3 years from now and they got 7, 8, 9, 10 million for their 30%, I effectively paid them a 40% interest rate in addition to all of their money back. So equity is extremely expensive. Here's the next version, safes. Now a safe is usually how Andreessen, NEA, first round, 0.9. It's usually how they do early seed stage deals. You guys, I think, are familiar with the safe. The next is a seal. Guys, yes or no in the chat. Have you heard of a seal? Yes or no? Have you heard of a seal, Andrej? A seal is a new asset class, okay? Okay, Hannah said no. Ziga said no. Anyone else? Has anyone heard of it? It's okay if you haven't. Seal is sort of a new asset class. Verdict is out on if this takes off or not. But basically, it's a VC or an investor saying, we'll give you money today and you buy it back over the next, whatever, 3 to 6 years, right? So you pay them back their capital and they still own equity. Now, altogether, Earnest Capital, Tiny Seed, and Indie VC are really experimenting with these kinds of seal approaches. Altogether, they've deployed less than $50 million compared to billions of equity and billions on safe. So it's a very small asset class, and we'll have to see if it takes off. Verdict is sort of still out on this, okay? So Verdict's still out. Darko-Matic, Verdict is still out on seals. What's the next option for founders? Well, guys, they're called RBFs. They're called RBFs, okay? Revenue-based financing. The companies doing this at scale are folks like Lighter Capital, Bigfoot Capital, Flywheel Capital in Southeast Asia. And what they do is they'll lend you a certain amount of money, usually 1 to 2x your monthly recurring revenue, maybe 3x. You then, let's say it's 100 grand. You then pay back 1.5 to 3x that amount over a 2 to 4 year period. So it'd be like me giving you guys $100,000 today and then saying, pay me back 300,000 over the next 2 to 4 years. And the way you're going to pay me back is a percent of your monthly revenue. That's why it's called revenue-based financing, okay? And that percent of monthly revenue is usually somewhere between, call it 4 and 9%, 4 and 9%. Now, does anyone see what the problem with this is? Anyone see a problem here? Think about it. If you're paying back as a percent of your monthly receipts, what happens if you grow really fast? Where are all you guys that said you raised, 50 million, 80 million, Series B? What happens if you grow really fast? If you pay back as a percent of your monthly revenue, you end up paying it back way faster than 2 to 4 years, which means yes, Darko, you nailed it. You end up overpaying. You end up paying an effective interest rate of something above 20%, between 20 and sometimes as high as 40%, especially when you add in prepayment penalties, origination fees, and things like that. That being said, it gives you flexibility. An RBF gives you flexibility, and you have to give up no equity, which we like, okay? Can anyone guess what the next way is? That was 4. We have 2 more left. 6 ways to raise capital without getting crazy diluted. Anyone have a guess what the next one is? Darko, you guessed right on overpaying. You have a guess on the next one? The fifth way are term loans. And all a term loan is, guys, is it's a fixed interest rate. So instead of paying back 5 to 10% of your monthly receipts, you'll pay back a flat interest rate, usually between 15% and 25%. Okay, 15 to 25%. I put here 10 to 20%, but you get the idea. So this is not tied to your revenue, which is nice, because if you get the term loan money today, you use it to grow really fast, you don't have to pay it back faster. It's a fixed rate over time. And then lastly, guys, you have banks, okay, bank debt. This is like SVB, CIBC. These are great options if you've raised a lot of VC. These banks usually will not give you capital unless they saw a VC invest in you recently, because those banks are essentially giving you cash, and the collateral, the reason they're comfortable doing it is because they see all the money in your bank from the VC. Who's with me so far? I know that was a lot of complex terms. Just give me a big old heck yes in the comments. Ziga, are you with me? Hannah, you with me? 6 ways. I'm going to dive into one of them here in a second. But 6 ways. Are you with me? Maddox says yes. Hannah says yes. Good. You guys are with me. Cool. Otto saying this is so good. Keep it coming. Very good. I love this. And I don't know, guys, if there's a way for me to bring any of you guys live. But if you guys see a button, if you see a button on your screen that says join Nathan live, click it and I will figure out a way to bring you on. If not, no worries. We'll keep chatting. And you want to keep watching. Eric Sue in the house as well. His content, top-notch stuff. So what I want to do now is encourage you guys to think about, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Here's what I want you guys to think about. How many of you guys are actually in control of your company? I know a lot of you are sort of project managers. Maybe you're not C-suite, maybe you are, but just type founder in the comments if you are the founder, meaning you are the one in charge of making capital decisions for your business. Who's a founder? Okay, so Hannah's a founder. Who else? Blendor, I hope I'm saying that right, is a founder. Who else? Darko's a co-founder, okay. So guys, Hannah, Blendor, Darko, Kinga, co-founder, Aljaz, co-founder, I want to run an experiment with you guys. If you guys have identified a way to spend money to make money, a user acquisition channel, okay? Here's my question to you. How much capital, Rock is a co-founder, guys, how much capital would you love to have today to run your next experiment? Think about it, type it in the chat. How much capital would you love to have today to run your next experiment? Because based off the thousands of CEOs I've interviewed, especially the bootstrapped ones, they're always one experiment away from the big break that adds $1 million in revenue or something like that. So how much would you want today? Okay, Rock just said 1.5 million would be great. Kinga, Darko, Blender, don't be shy. Hannah, don't be shy. How much would you guys want today? If you could have whatever you wanted. Okay, Martin, that's great. Martin said $20,000. Great. Who else? Darko saying 75,000. Good. Blendor says 300 grand. Now here's the exercise I want to do with you guys. I run Founder Path, right? So I've helped founders raise a bunch of debt capital. And one of the things that's important to me is even if no one works with us and takes money from us, we wanted to build a calculator so that anyone could see how much it would cost them. So Martin, for your 20K, for example, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and open up my browser window, and I'm going to run this analysis. Blender, I'll do it for you. Kinga, I'll do it for you as well, okay? And you guys are welcome to follow along. I'm going to share my screen here so you can see it. And Martin, let's do you first, okay? Let's do Martin first. So when you go to Founder Path, ignore signing up. Don't sign up. But go down here. Use this thing for free, okay? So again, let's do, you just said you wanted $20,000. By typing in the amount you want, we will auto-update this left side so you can get a sense of what it would cost you, okay? Martin, you with me, man? You with me? So take a look at this, right? So 20,000 today, the loan would cost you $6,718, and you'd pay it back once per month for 48 months, and it will be about $560. You with me? Okay, so $560 for 4 years in exchange for us giving you or you getting $20,000 today. So Martin, here's my question to you. And this is the question you should all ask. Martin, can you spend $20,000 today and add more than $560 in new monthly recurring revenue? Say that in a different way. Can you spend 20 grand today and add more than the cost of the loan, the debt, in new MRR? Do you see how this works, guys? You don't give up any equity. There's no warrants. There's no board seat. There's no prepayment penalty. There's no personal guarantee, which means we can't come after your house in Slovenia, right, if you don't pay, right? It's super straightforward. So Kinga, let's do this for you. Let's try this for $100,000. We'll type in 100,000, okay? Here's what it would be for you. For you, you'd get 100,000 today, and you'd pay back 48 equal payments of $2,700 per month for 4 years. So Kinga, your question would be, can you take 100 grand today and add more than 3 grand in new MRR? Now, 3 grand in new MRR, Kinga, you can do this math, but I'll repeat it. 3 grand in new MRR is 36,000 in new annual recurring revenue, 36,000 in new ARR. So the question really is, can you take 100 grand today and add more than 36,000 in ARR, right? So that's $3 today for $1 of ARR. A lot of you guys, Kinga, you're scrappy as heck. Darko, I bet you're super scrappy too. Martin, I bet you're scrappy. I bet you guys know how to spend $1 and get $1 of new ARR. So imagine spending $3. I bet you could get $3 of new ARR. But all you need in order to make the loan profitable for you is $1 new dollar of ARR. So this is why, I hope this math, guys, underscores why this new asset class, right, debt, is enabling founders to build their companies without taking a bunch of dilution. Now, I want to make sure I didn't lose you guys in any of the math. So guys, give me just, again, if it makes total sense to you, throw in some exclamation points in the chat, a 10 plus plus plus. If it doesn't make sense, say, Nathan, what's going on? And we'll go through it again. Does it make sense? Okay, Otto saying, now do Rock. Yeah, Rock. So if we did 1.5 million, let's do that, right? 1, 500, 1, 2, 3. Rock, your question would be, Can you take 1.5 million today and add more than $40,000 in MRR or 480,000 in new ARR? That would be your question, right? So if you want to actually see sort of how this works, you would then click apply and actually apply to go through it. But I don't want to get into all that today. I just want to show you guys how this works, right? How this works. And we're not the only ones doing this, guys. So I want to give you this resource. It's a big Excel file. I'm going to show it to you real quick. It's a big Excel file I've put together with all of the SaaS lenders that I have personally worked with. Because the only reason I built FounderPath is from my podcast, right? So we put all the podcast episodes up at getlatka.com. We have over, how many do we have now? We have over 4,512 SaaS founders that I've interviewed, that we've put them all up with their revenue, their cash flow, their annual contract values, their churn. And all we've done is, so many of these founders have asked me to help them raise capital. So starting in 2016, I started helping, and I started building this list of all the capital providers I've helped founders work with. So you guys will now have this list. I'm going to send it to you right now in the calculator area, or sorry, in the chat area. There you go. So you guys can open this doc and check out a bunch of these different lenders. And you want to pay, I see you guys joining, which is great. You want to pay careful attention to this column that I just highlighted, minimum revenue. You want to pay careful attention to the max loan value. So this is a multiple of your MRR, and the max debt they can put into any one company, right? Into any one company. And then again, if you want to work with any of these folks, you can see their effective cost of capital. So we charge between 12 and 18%. Okay, there's a bunch of other providers. We put up all of their sort of interest and things like that as you go down. So on that note, guys, I hope you found that super valuable. I hope it made a lot of sense to you. If you want to type in your own amount and play with the calculator, that's the link. I just put it in the chat. I encourage you to just go there, scroll down, and type in numbers. See what it would look like. But the important thing I want you guys to know is founders today, I don't care if you're in, Slovenia or Kentucky or Southeast India or Cape Town, Africa. If you're building a software company today and you're a founder, you have more power than ever. You have more power than ever. The VC path is not the only path. In the last 25 minutes, I showed you 6 different ways you can raise $1 million many times very quick. So the debt stuff you can do in under 72 hours. We've done a lot of money in under 72 hours, okay? VC takes longer. But I walked you through that over the past 25 minutes, and I just want you to remember, you have more power than ever. You don't have to only sell a big chunk of your company to raise capital. And the reason this is important is because you guys know just as well as I do, as a bootstrap founder especially, you're literally one experiment away from adding millions of dollars of revenue to your business. Don't sell a big chunk of your company to run those experiments. Try debt capital, run the experiment, grow your business. And remember, there's nothing wrong with building a $5 or $10 million revenue SaaS company and building extreme wealth for you, your team, your family off the profits. That's what true wealth is about. I think that's why we all start companies in the first place anyway, is to be happy and have a lot of freedom. Guys, on that note, my name is Nathan Latka, founder of founderpath.com. I feed off your energy. So if you enjoyed this presentation on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being loved it, best out there, learned at least one thing, type it in the chat right now, scale of 0 to 10. What did you guys think? You enjoy that? Oh, nice. Gabriel saying hand clap. Kinga saying 11. Doman says starry eyes. Otto says useful. Martin said 10. Guys, you guys make this fun for me. I appreciate you guys not being shy in the comments. Blendor saying 10. Rock saying 10. Matic saying 13. Matic and the entire team putting on the SaaStock logo, I want to thank you. And I also want to thank Gabriel and Alex and the entire SaaStock parent company for being so smart about launching all these locals. Guys, SaaS businesses know no boundaries. They can be built anywhere. It takes a good idea, a lot of hard work, code, sales, a little capital, and you'll be on your way. If I can be helpful, guys, I'll put my email right now in the chat. It's nathan@founderpath.com. You can feel free to email me if you guys want help as Matic rejoins the screen here. Matic, what'd you think?
It was awesome. Thank you very much. It was nice
You
having
bet.
you.
Were there any questions I missed you want me to answer before Eric jumps in?
Let's ask people, do you have any questions before we go to the last keynote?
And guys, I have to tell you, stick around for Eric. We've had him many times on our Deal or Bust show, which is Shark Tank for software companies on YouTube. He always drops value bombs. He ran an agency, then he launched his own tech company, ClickFlow. It's doing extremely well, but this is a guy that's really done it all. Consulted with SaaS companies. He walks the walk, so you do not want to miss this last presentation. Matic, even though it's getting very late there in Slovenia.
Yeah, true. So thank you very much, Nathan. Let's switch to Eric. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Camera.
Hey, Eric.
How are?
I think we still have a problems with the camera, but let me just
I'm
go with
here.
it. Okay, cool. So without further ado, Eric Su is a CEO and founder of ClickFunnels and Single Grain. We'll be talking about evergreen growth tactics. So Eric, the stage is yours.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, Matic. Nathan always does a good job. Everyone, make sure you check out Deal or Bust. It is one of the shows I look forward to watching every single week. I learn a lot from it. And Founder Path, amazing service that he's put together. I just think, a lot of things that he says just makes a lot of sense. It's like you're looking to build a business, build it for yourself. You know what to do with it. And, go raise the capital and then put money into the formula that you have that works and then scale it faster, right? So what I'm going to do is for the next, I guess I have you for the next 25, 30 minutes or so. I'm going to talk fairly quickly and try to get through as much as I can. And I'm still recovering from a little bit of a sickness right now, so I might be a little off. I don't sound how I usually sound, but really excited to always talk to the SaaStock crowd. Haven't been to Slovenia before. I hope to visit one day. And let me go ahead and just share my screen. So let me share my screen right here. And let's go ahead and do this. If you guys can see me right now, type, if you guys can hear me, see me okay, just type 1 into chat and you guys can see my screen. I want to make sure everything is working. And I'm going to go ahead and hit present. Hello, Gabriel. And Eva, thank you. Ziga, thank you. Doman, thank you. We're going to make this a good session. We know it's 9 p.m. right now. You got to get to networking next. But you guys are bringing it. So I'm going to try to bring it as much as I can. All right. So here we go. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to talk about a couple of timeless, tested growth marketing principles that will guide you through the time. So, the stuff that Nathan just talked about, raising the capital. Okay, so let's say you go get 100 grand right now, or you get 200 grand or whatever. What are you going to actually do with that, right? So, what tactics are you going to deploy on? And I'm going to share with you kind of what's been working, because what I tend to do is I tend to experiment a lot when it comes to marketing in general. So as Matic mentioned, my name is Eric Su. I own an ad agency called Single Grain, and I have a company called ClickFlow. I have operators that run both of those companies. On my end, I just like to nerd out on marketing and then talk about, look for different deals that are out there and just create content and just learn from, people such as yourselves and share as much as I can. So I have on the very right side, there is a podcast that I do called Marketing School. And Marketing School is a daily marketing podcast I do with another marketer named Neil Patel. And I also have another podcast called Leveling Up Now. That one is actually more so where I talk to founders, a lot of SaaS founders, a lot of authors as well. And then here are the two companies. So the very first thing I want to ask you as I kind of jump around here is, what do you think is the number one factor to success with your ads, right? Is it your click-through rate? Is it your conversion rate? Is it your cost per click, cost per acquisition, customer acquisition, spend? It could be something else. What do you think is the number one factor to success with your ads? And this is a question that applies to just all marketing across the board, right? What do you think is the number one factor to success with your ads? Let me check what you guys are saying in chat real quick. Let's see. Customer acquisition. Hannah says customer acquisition. What else do you guys think? The number one thing. ROI. Liam, good to see you. The message. Okay, it's a good answer. Rock says cost per acquisition. Okay, so we got a couple good answers here. So by far, if you look at ClickFunnels, which is a company that does over $150 million a year, they, number one thing that they do well is they're creative, right? So check this out over here. If you look at Russell Brunson over here, this is the Facebook ad library. It's a free tool to use. You can see how much new creative he's pumping out. So 630 results over here. So, you know, Liam's answer when he talks about the message, the creative, whatever you want to call it, that is actually what matters. Because if your creative is not good, you're not going to be able to drive clicks to through your ad and then drive them to your website at a cost-effective number, right? And so not enough people, when they think about SaaS, they're like, oh, all I need to do is, you know, throw up some Google ads, throw up some Facebook ads, and then, you know, that's it. They don't think about the art and the craft and the science behind what actually goes into good marketing creative. When you got a guy like Russell Brunson, who's always cranking out new videos over here, new angles, new offers, that's what it really takes to be successful. Because oftentimes in these feeds, what you're seeing is they're scrolling, there's banner blindness, people get tired of, you know, whatever was a really smart creative yesterday is probably today's standard, right? It's today's normal. So what you got to think about is how can you pump out new creative over and over and over? How can you create a system that works for you? Because once you have a good creative, your cost per click is going to go cheaper. Your cost per cost per acquisition is going to be lower, right? So actually, no, what I was saying earlier is your cost per click is going to be lower, right? So you are going to be able to scale much better across the board. People don't think that way, right? Oftentimes it is the creative at the end of the day. All right. So just to show you a couple more examples here with ClickFunnels, look, he's got a cookbook over here. I remember before he was sending out like an MP3 player. He's got these new habits for success. He's got cartoons over here. He's got different bundles of different courses that he's had in the past, and he just keeps trying new things, new offers. And I remember when I had him on the Leveling Up podcast, he was saying like, not only is he rotating out new creatives all the time, but he's rotating out offers all the time too, because one offer that performed really well maybe last month might not be relevant anymore. So usually throughout 1 year, he's rotating out through 6 different offers, right? So think about what you can do from a creative standpoint, and also how can you change up your offer just a little bit so you know your audience is constantly getting something new from you. And then when they think of you, they think of, oh, Matic or Nathan or whoever, you guys are pumping out new creatives all the time, and they look forward to seeing what you have to make. All right. So that's on the creative side. And I'm going to give you a couple of resources, but I also want to marry the two. You have creative, but you also have copywriting as well. So, people will be like, oh, when I look at some of the SaaS companies out there, they write like, the ad copy might be really bland and boring and say like, oh, better document storage for you, right? And like that's it. And that's their definition of running Facebook ads. What you got to think about is how can you actually tap into the psychology of your customers, right? So copywriting is important. Copywriting ties in directly with your creative too, because the copy that you're writing can tap into people's emotions, right? Are you thinking about what they're actually interested in? Are they aware of the problem that you might be solving? Are they aware of the deal that you might have for them? Copywriting can help you take them through that entire journey, right? So what I like doing is when I think about creative or when I think about copywriting, I just like to look at other people's formulas. I don't need to necessarily come up with something from scratch, right? So you can always search for headline formulas. Just simply Google headline formulas out there, and all you have to do is just take a look at this, and it's like, oh, you know what? This is just like an Excel sheet over here. Here's the headline type, 13 ways to benefit. Here's the formula, 13 surefire roads, paths, ways to benefit through your offer. And then here's the example over here, 13 surefire ways to stay energized in the morning, right? And that's all you have to do. You just need to change things up a little bit, look at what resonates with you. And then ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a library of marketing that influences you, whether it's, good copywriting that stops you in your tracks, or good creative that stops you in your tracks, right? You're looking for influence everywhere. You don't need to necessarily reinvent the wheel, right? Here, let's try another one over here. Are you embarrassed by a problem? Are you embarrassed by your small user base? Okay, so let's say on the ad agency side with Single Grain, our job is to help people acquire more customers, right? So very simple question we can ask: are you embarrassed by your small customer base? Are you embarrassed by your lack of your high CPAs, right? Stuff like that, to get people to, again, take an action, click on your ad, come to your website, and then you can do whatever you want with them afterwards. You can retarget them, you can collect the email, whatever you want to do. But the whole idea here is, we're talking about headline formulas, we're talking about creative formulas out there. And what Nathan was just talking about before this was, using capital and plugging it into the formula that you have for your business already, right? So it's all about using formulas over here, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's growth, whatever you want to call it. We're all trying to just use formulas, and then that way we can just plug things in and get our businesses to grow faster. All right. So we kind of talked about templates over here. So how prospects can achieve desirable benefit this year. Another example, how SaaS founders can achieve exponential growth this year. Like I mentioned, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And what I like to do is I like using services like swiped.co. This is free to use. And you can see here are a bunch of different landing pages, long form sales letters that you can just swipe, you can save. And then from there, you can decide, you can go talk to your marketing team, say, hey, I like these elements. I want to put this on my landing page. And then from there, you can actually test it to see if it works better than your control version, right? So there's a lot of these types of websites out there. Swipe.co, they've got inspiration for marketers and copywriters. And you can just pull from this. And this website actually does analysis on different sections of landing pages on why they think it performs better. And then you can just look at these more and more, right? Draw inspiration, and again, not need to reinvent the wheel. Okay. So the other thing I like doing too is when I'm using Facebook or when I'm using Instagram, I just like saving stuff, right? Stuff that draws my attention. So I know this one piece from Bloomberg over here. Everyone has a wealth number. What's yours, right? That caught my attention because it's unique, right? It's different. It's unique. Some of this other stuff over here, this data visualization, I like this as well, right? And then I have some Facebook ads that I saved over here too. We have a program that actually helps agencies. So it's like someone's agency program caught my eye, so I saved the ad over here. So there's a lot of stuff that I end up saving, and I save it into different collections. So ads that I like, or maybe stuff around social posts or data visualization, that type of stuff. And I'll come back to it later, and then let's say every Monday or so, I'll get with my team and we'll talk about what inspiration we like and what we like to copy or draw inspiration from. And then from there, we're actually off and we're doing stuff, right? We don't have to come up with things from scratch. So another thing I'm going to call out here is when you're writing copy, we're talking about creative, we're talking about copy stuff. What I like to do is I like using a sentiment analysis tool. So you can use Grammarly if you want, or you can just use a tool like this, textprocessing.com. And then I will just go ahead and I'll post the copy in here. And then the sentiment analysis tool will score whether it's positive or negative, right? So generally, when you're looking to write stuff, you want it to be positive. If you're too neutral, if you're too negative, it's not going to perform as well. It's not going to get as much engagement. And engagement is obviously the name of the game when you're posting to these social media platforms, especially when you're running ads. So think about how your ad is coming off, and if you want it to be coming off negative or positive, and just plug it into a tool like this, or you can use Grammarly. And then this is just another check that I like doing when I'm putting copy together. All right. And here are the resources. So in terms of top copywriting books, the number one book I'm going to recommend is it's called Breakthrough Advertising over here. So this book was written in the 1920s. And it's this guy's kind of known as the godfather of copywriting, right? It's human psychology hasn't changed much at all, right? We're still interested in the same things. We still have the same desires. So getting a book like this, which is about probably $125, you can buy it online right now. I bought mine for like $600 before someone bought the rights, and then now they've managed to bring the cost down. So Breakthrough Advertising is a great book. The 16-word sales letter. This is written by a guy that works for a company called Agora Financial. and they do over $1 billion a year in sales, and he's known as one of their best copywriters. I would check that one out. The Boron Letters, which is by Gary Halpert, and he's also got the Gary Halpert Letters as well. He actually wrote this book when he was thrown into prison because his copywriting was so good. He was just using it for not necessarily all the right reasons. So he got thrown into prison. He was writing all these letters to his son. And then Ben Settle over here, he's got a newsletter called Email Players. And that's, it's got great tactics, strategies, and a lot of different stuff that you can use to, again, try to influence people to, bring them to the point of sale and take an action, right? Again, I think, being in the SaaS world for a very long time and then also marrying it with, a lot of the direct response marketing that I've learned over the years, I think a lot of people are not taking advantage of kind of the two worlds, right? Like, people, SaaS marketers kind of look down on, internet marketers, right? And internet marketers kind of look down on anybody that isn't focused on just making money, right? I think there's a lot to learn from both sides. And then if you can marry the worlds together, you're going to have a leg up over both sides, in my opinion. I don't think it's one side's better than the other. I think it's, I'm going to take advantage of smart tactics and strategies from both sides and, do what I can with it, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. Okay. So as we work towards, work through the slides, there is a tactic here by a marketer named Dean Jackson. So this is called the 9-word email. And let me explain what that is. So the 9-word email, Dean Jackson, he actually said he has a client that sells a 9-figure product, right? These are yachts. And so, if you're like, if you're Liam, for example, and then you come to my website, my yacht website, and you raise your hand and you say you're interested in a yacht, and maybe at that moment I give you a call and you're like, oh, the timing's not right. Well, what I do in 3 months is I send you a 9-word email, and then I'll say, hey, Liam, we talked about, a couple months ago you were interested in a yacht. Are you still interested in a yacht now? Right? So it's a very short email. It's just asking a question. And imagine if you're doing this for your SaaS company. So for ClickFlow, for example, we might say, hey, are you still interested in, our SEO software, ClickFlow? It's as simple as that. People either say yes or no. And, we have, in terms of results that we've gotten, the open rate is about 50%, response rate is about 20%. And we've closed multiple 6 to 7-figure deals just by sending this simple email over here. Hey, name, were you still interested in growing your SEO traffic? Are you still interested in a yacht? Are you still interested in buying a home in Georgia, right? Whatever it is exactly, all you have to do is send a 9-word email, send it every 90 days, and then you're guaranteed, in my opinion, if you have an email list, you should be able to get a couple of deals every single time you do this. And you can just automate this. It's a very simple email to do. Not enough people do this. And guess what? This tactic, it comes from the direct response marketing world, right? You can easily apply this into the world of SaaS just to get a couple more customers. And who knows, it might be a very big whale that can make all the difference in your business. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is going omnichannel. So, I talked about the podcast that I do with Neil, and actually now we're on track for about 1.5 million downloads a month. So, in the screenshot, it's about 35 million downloads. But the problem with podcasting is this. It's not, when we do a podcast, it does not automatically get transcribed. We don't have written content for it. We don't have video content for it. It's just the audio file that you get, right? And we might push it to, a couple of different channels. So, the main thing for us is when we're creating content, we want to make the most of it, right? Because the problem right now is, our attention split. 1 second we might be watching Netflix, and I might open my phone. I might be on YouTube. Attention is just too split. So they used to say in marketing that to get people to take an action, it's the rule of 7, right? They have to see you at least 7 times to take an action. I would argue that it is now the rule of 14, or it's the rule of maybe 21, where they have to see you 14 times or 21 times to take an action. So just because they hear me on a podcast is not enough. What we do now instead is we want to make the most of the content that we put out there. So yesterday I was recording a podcast with Neil, and when we record, we're on video, right? So, we record for an hour to 2 hours or so. And, we record, let's say 10 to 15 episodes, but those are all now video files, which can go on YouTube. And, obviously they'll go into podcasts as well. But what we'll also do is we'll chop up a lot of the pieces into micro content, and we'll throw it up on Instagram TV, or we'll throw it up on Instagram, we'll throw it up on TikTok. And then, we might even take some of the content and convert it into longer form blog posts, and then we'll promote it out. So this entire process of going omnichannel, we call it content sprouting, right? So we take, one piece of content right here, we sprout it into multiple pieces over here, we promote it and we monetize it. So instead of just saying, oh, we're going to make one big piece, one video and that's it. One piece can now become, 15, 20, 30 pieces, 50 pieces, right? Instead of just saying, oh, one piece is one piece, because we want to make the most of what we have. And the name of the game now, when it comes to content, if you're producing content, is you want as much reach as possible. That's the goal that you should be aiming for, right? Sure, you can aim for, down funnel type metrics, such as, getting more leads and things like that. But I would argue that, the first thing that you should be focusing on when you're creating content is aiming for reach, right? It's a traffic, it's the number of people that are seeing your content. So that's what you're trying to do ultimately. Focus on getting one channel down first, and then think about how you can sprout it out using a process like this. All right. So, we do this with our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Leveling Up. And what we do is, if you see on the YouTube channel over here, we have this color palette, and it's the same color palette over here. In some cases, we'll take the video and we'll chop it up for our Instagram over here. So we'll make a 10-minute video. Maybe it might become a 1-minute video, and we'll do the same thing over here. We'll take some of these carousels. You can see these are multiple pieces that you can kind of swipe to the left or to the right, and we'll throw this one up on LinkedIn, and it'll get really good reach. Same thing with Instagram as well. But the whole idea here is we are also repurposing it on Instagram. We're also repurposing on YouTube as well. And my team is handling all of this. You can easily find someone on Upwork to help you with this, or Fiverr to help you with this. Again, the name of the game is you're aiming for more reach. Okay. And what we do on our Slack channel is our team reports in on, here's the daily output for Eric, right? And this is from like maybe a year and a half ago. We've since gotten our output to about, I think, 40 or 50 per day. Ideally, we want to get it to a point where we're at 100 per day. But again, the idea here is we're aiming for frequency, we're aiming for reach. And then here, this is like we call it trust but verify. We want to make sure that, we trust our teams doing the work, but we also want to verify that this is actually happening as well. So someone will post this every single day. All right. Cool. So let's see. The final thing I want to talk about is this. And, some of the speakers, I don't know if Dan covered this. I don't know if Nathan covered this. But if you watch Nathan's show, Deal or Bust, there's a lot of great deals on there. You have, a great website like microacquire.com. And, when I think about marketing, when I think about, oh, this website has a lot of traffic, maybe they have a lot of leads or so, why not just focus on buying some of these websites, right? Can you grow through acquisitions? And it sounds a lot scarier than it actually is, but it's actually not that bad, right? So what I want to give you is I'm just giving you an introductory kind of formula that you can follow. And hopefully that will kind of plant the seed for you and give you some things to think about. Because a lot of us, we think about, oh, we should just go build everything that we have, right? But there's a lot of assets out there that you can go out there and buy. And I think, this is not just it's not just an M&A thing now. I think it's very much a growth thing as well. Okay. So let's use this example right here. Let's say you are a pet SaaS business at about 3 million ARR, and you spend a lot on ads. And you are looking to buy some pet media websites that get over 500,000 visits a month, which is not as crazy as it sounds. And you end up finding a website that's doing about $1 million a year in annual revenue, about $200,000 in profit. Okay. So let's say that, the 200,000, the multiple on that website is maybe 3x on profit. Okay. So the sales price might be $600,000. Well, what you can do is you can put 10% down, and at least in America, you can do this, right? 10% down, so $60,000, and you get the rest financed by the seller. This is just one example of a transaction that you might do, right? I know seller financing, some people are iffy about it. Some people are actually okay with it. But imagine that you can buy a website that's doing $1 million a year, right, for $60,000 down, get the rest financed by the seller. And, you know, you can do other creative stuff such as this, right? You can say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna pay you the down payment for about 30 to 45 days. And while I do that, I'm gonna look for some assets to sell from the business. And then I'm gonna use whatever I got from the proceeds to put into the down payment, where I'm effectively putting $0 out of pocket to finance this transaction, right? So there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat here. You know, when you're doing a deal, you have I have the sheet where it's like more than 250 tactics that you can use when you're trying to buy something, right? I'm just saying that you have a lot of possibilities that are open to you, and a lot of people think, you know, this is too complex, this is too hard for me. I'm just going to focus on ads. I'm just going to focus on, you know, what I know. But you're leaving a lot of money on the table by not learning how to do something like this. And I just want to plant the seed to say that this is very possible. Growing through acquisitions is actually a lot faster, which is why a lot more people now are talking about buying SaaS businesses. But I'm saying, you know, on my end, you can also buy growth opportunities or growth. You can basically buy growth, right? Whether it's leads or traffic, you can do that. Okay. So you don't need to be a big, you know, fancy investor to do these types of deals. You know, I know a lot of friends that do it. You know, I'm always looking at deals out there as well. And, you know, it's not as bad as it seems. And you can always walk away if the deal is not a good fit for you. Right. So anyway, you know, I kind of had to go fast today. I'm kind of under the weather right now. I'm not myself completely. So sorry if it's hard to understand me, but you can follow me on Instagram. You can also email me eric@singlegrain.com or hit me up on the Twitters. And I'm happy to answer any questions before we hop off and let you get back to your evening of networking.
Eric, buddy, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
No, I know. I feel like it was, oh man, generations ago.
It was yesterday. Yeah.
Honestly, for a under the weather person, I felt like you rocketed through that presentation. I took it as many notes as I could.
Thank you for that.
But you know, you never know enough. I literally was Googling how do I get breakthrough advertising for less than $350.
You can get it for $125, right? If you Google it.
I didn't quite get to a price that I like just yet. I'm gonna keep looking it up. But if you say it's possible,
you should be able to get it for $125. If there's one book I recommend from at least today's presentation, it's that. So
I'm definitely a sucker for knowledge that's hard to acquire. That's one thing I'm definitely willing to pay for. Man, I guess in our panel earlier we were talking about like what's changed, and I guess my big question for you to kick this Q&A off is what do you think has changed about growing in 2020? Do you think what are you seeing that's changed? New platforms, new channels. You talked a bit about podcasting, which obviously has blown up. I've seen you guys blowing it up very early. What do you think is changing in 2020?
Yeah, I think and thank you, Hannah, thank you, Blendor, and thank you, Andres. So I think, look, SMS is going to get more and more popular. I mean, even with this in the United States right now with the election, I'm getting a lot more SMS spam. So I think that's going to get abused, and I think we're going to see more regulation for sure. I do think email is making a comeback. You see a lot of people starting Substacks and things like that. So I think one thing that's unique is if you can start an email newsletter that's free and you can start to acquire customers that way, where you can buy emails from like, you know, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, get them on your email list, and then you can market them whatever. I think that's a really nifty way to do marketing. And I do, just like I mentioned earlier, I think the growth through acquisitions thing, I think more and more people are going to start to do it once they start to understand that it's not as difficult as it actually is. So
once you wrap your head around the unit economics of buying a lead, and then you wrap your head around, especially in America, because I feel like the game's unfair for acquisitions in the US. We have so many naughty ways of getting financing. That I think, especially for Europeans, you hear it and you're like, oh, what's that? Free money? Well,
Yeah.
It's sort of free. Just read the fine print.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So gang, before we let Eric go and switch over into networking, if you guys want to throw up any questions for him, I know he covered a lot. I saw some people sharing links to books. Matic was running around trying to grab all the links to all the references. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, throw them up in the chat so we can get as much out of Eric as possible.
Yeah, I think while we wait for some questions to pop up, I think you know, people are always going to be like, "What's the next growth tactic? What's the next growth tactic?" I think and Neil and I actually talked about this when we were recording marketing school yesterday, and you know, it's the only thing that's going to work consistently over time is if you build a brand and you're consistent over, we're talking 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, right? You're out there, you're creating content. I was talking with a guy named Anthony Pompliano, and he's built an audience in the last 3 years. He's got a mega audience, big podcast, couple million listeners a month, big Twitter following. And, you know, I was talking to him, he's like, yeah, you know, I realized that the only thing I should focus on every single day is just creating content. Like, it's the highest leverage thing I can do. Nobody else can copy me. And I build relationships along the way. And I was just like, holy shit, like I should be doing that as well, which is why I'm like, I'm trying to like offload, and I have offloaded most of the operation stuff. And then there's just people running the companies now. You want to get to that level where you're creating as much of a moat as you can for yourself, because that's what's going to last for the long term.
Yeah, that's a huge point. That's the one that I struggle with a lot. I moved from being strong personal brand to running creative teams. And the hardest part is running into situations where you're like, I think the best thing I could be doing is just nitpicking over copy, but I have a 14-person team, so maybe I shouldn't do that. But that's still what I'm gonna end up doing. Like that's like hard. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah. I started this week, and I wrote on my to-do list, post every day. That was the only thing I wrote. I was like, it's been too long. It's been a weird year. Post every day.
It's hard. Even when you do have something like that, it's hard to stick with it.
It's tough. Oh, there's some good. There's a good questions. Yeah, Blender asking about in-house copywriting. Tackle it yourself.
Okay, man. So if you are looking to hire, there's a couple places you can hire copywriters. There's copyhackers.com, Pro Bloggers job board. Sometimes they actually have good copywriters on there as well. I would say if you're not good at copy, if it doesn't give you energy, don't try to tackle it on your own. And ideally, if you can afford it, you bring a copywriter in-house, because the best copywriters are often the most expensive. And if not, I would just hire a mercenary, right? You can use a company like marketerhire.com. Upwork sometimes has good people there hanging out too. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, King Gas says a really good point, like the difference between a copywriter and a content marketer. Like we have a great content marketing team because I'm a content guy, so you get really picky. And now we just had to like fold our hand and say our paid acquisition team needs a copywriter. Like we can't be doing that. It's so much nitpicking. It's so different. Like it really splits out. You've got, like, as you said, like this sort of like production house, get good creative out the door, but then you need that team that can run the operations and get that distribution.
Yep.
Oh, that's a great question. So Hannah asked, you talked about testing huge number of offers and ads. How do you monitor and compare all of that? And is that what ClickFunnels does? Yeah,
great question. So ClickFunnels, their marketing team, when I spoke with their CMO a month or two ago, I think it's above 40, 50 people. And what they do is they'll launch different offers and they'll have a project manager for that offer, right? So like we might have like a new, I don't know, like a PDF offer or like an ebook offer or something like that. And Leah might become the project manager for that. And then like we might launch something where I give away something physical, like, I don't know, this, right? I don't even know what this is. I don't know, right? But so then I might become the project manager for that. So the idea is that they'll keep launching things, but they'll be like, okay, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for this. And I think a lot of people, whenever they launch things, they just kind of like, it kind of just goes off into the ether, and nothing good comes of it, right? So that's how they do it. I would say the way we test our creatives, we have a daily stand-up where we're talking about, kind of the standard stuff, right? What's blocking us, whatever. And then what happens is we actually end up going over the ads. We look at the numbers and we look at what's performing, what's not performing, and we iterate quickly and we'll eliminate ads as we go. So it's a daily occurrence. And then we have a 90-minute meeting on Mondays, which is more in depth, where we'll talk about top performing creatives from last week and what we want to be changing.
Wow, super tactical.
Yeah.
Okay, gang. Well, we're coming up on 39 past the hour, whatever hour it might be, wherever you are. Why don't we give Eric some love in the chat? Eric, thanks for dropping some knowledge bombs. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll invite Matic back up on stage to wrap us up and transition us into networking. Eric, hopefully you'll stick around and network a little bit with some of our attendees.
I'll try to stick around for a little bit. Not feeling well, but thank you all for having me, and super grateful that you guys stayed up just to hear my voice.
It was great hearing from you, Eric. Hey, Matic, good to have you back.
Hey, Eric. Thank you. I'm also not feeling very well, but
Hey, you powered through it. You're the organizer.